Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lana and today we're looking at my best books of 2023. I came up with a list of 5 favorites and I think around 5 honorable mentions that I enjoyed but that did not quite get that spot in the top 5. Overall, I feel like my reading year was good. I did read a lot of books, more than I expected to, I guess. I ended up reading, I'm just checking my stats, 65 books, and I think last year was like 40 books. Every year is so different. I'll do a different separate video on how my reading challenges for the year went. Spoiler alert, I'm pretty happy with how they went and I'm excited to start new ones for 2024. The ratings of the books have not been quite what I hoped. I realized that expecting a lot of 5 stars is probably unrealistic, and I don't know if how many 5 stars I'm giving out has anything to do with my state of mind and where I am in my life. I don't know if that changes. I have no idea. I had a lot of 4 stars and a lot of books that I really enjoyed that I thought were really good, but that don't really get me that super excited feeling of like, oh my god, this is a 5-star book, which is sad, but I would rather have more 4-star books, or even maybe some 3-star books that, you know, there's nothing really wrong with them, they're just not for me, but they were enjoyable, than having like very bad books and like incredible books. But I do miss that feeling of reading a 5-star book, because there's not many books this year have had that, unfortunately. So coming up with this list of 5 best books of the year was kind of tricky, because not all of these books are actually 5 stars, but I think they had the most impact on me, and I will talk about that. Oh, my average rating for the year is 3.9. It's not even a 4, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is, and as I said, I'm overall happy. Cannot tell if I'm in focus or not, but let's start with number 5 in my top 5, and that is the book Spellbound by Ali Thurin. This is actually a trilogy that I started and completed this year, and I think that is why I've decided to include it in this top 5, because it was that kind of trilogy, those kinds of books that made me want to pick up the next one as soon as possible. I ended up like in between these books missing the feeling of reading them, missing that world, missing the characters, and yeah, like missing the feeling of being in one of these books. So I ended up reading the whole trilogy. I enjoyed it. These books were actually not 5 stars. I think I gave the 3rd book 5 stars, but 1st and 2nd book were, I think, 4 stars. So individually these books were not groundbreaking, but they gave me a lot of comfort. So what is this even about? Spellbound is a paranormal romance historical mystery. All my keywords, everything I love. It has a male-male romance. This is set in New York City in the 20s while Prohibition is happening, and our main character is working in an antique store, and he has a paranormal ability to see the past of an object by touching it. He ends up enveloped in this world of paranormal relics that needs to be found and extinguished. Basically, they need to protect the non-paranormal world from these paranormal relics, and it's very lovely and I really enjoyed it. Number 4 is a book I knew nothing about going in. It is P.D. James' Sleep No More. I knew that P.D. James is very big in the mystery genre, and I wanted to read her stuff for a while. This is a collection of short stories, short murder mystery stories. Now, I'm not someone who enjoys short story collections. I don't like short stories pretty much ever. Very rarely. I think only in like non-fiction form have I enjoyed a short story collection. but this I loved. And I think the thing that was not working for me with most short story collections is that they are literary fiction short stories that I've read, but murder mysteries I love. I kept going back to like turning on the TV and watching one episode of a detective TV show that you've never seen before, but it makes sense and there is a mystery and it gets resolved by the end and it's perfect, and this is what it is. This also has that like sprinkling of Agatha Christie, of like a very comforting, very English murder mystery. I loved the writing. The mysteries were excellent. I really enjoyed them, and I just had so much fun reading this book. This book in itself may not be like a 5-star, oh my god, best book I read ever, but it gave me like an incredible feeling when I was reading this, and I thought, oh, I should go back to reading. I would get so happy because I would get to go back into this very cozy and comforting place of, you know, a cozy murder mystery. Number 3 is an audiobook, and that is What I Talk When I Talk About Running, a memoir by Haruki Murakami, and this is actually the audiobook that I listened to. It's translated by Philip Gabriel. I did not expect to love this as much as I did. When I finished listening to it for the first time, I think I was washing dishes or something, and I couldn't like turn it off because my hands were wet and soapy, and the audiobook just restarted itself and I never stopped it. And so I listened to it twice in a row, and then I listened to it again like 2 months afterwards. It's hard to explain why. It's very short, and it says here that it's a memoir. I don't know if I would call it a memoir, but it is Haruki Murakami's nonfiction, and he just basically tells you how he started running and different races that he participated in and how he ran his first marathon. It's just very casual and all centered around running. He does talk about how he became a writer and how that is kind of connected to his running journey, and it's just it was so comforting to listen to. I have no idea if maybe the voice of the narrator or the translation helped or not. Maybe they did. I just do I agree with everything that Haruki Murakami said in this book? No, but that's, you know, this is his truth. This is his experience with running. And of course, another layer of why I was interested in this book is because I started running in April. And I think that is around the time when I read this book. So it kind of coincided with, you know, me having my like first experiences with running and listening to him, and how did he deal with this and what were his challenges. He didn't really have many challenges in the beginning. He just like started running and it was fine. Not for all. It was not my experience. And it is kind of motivating the way he talks about stuff, because Haruki Murakami is very like matter of fact. He doesn't really dwell on, you know, feelings or emotions. It's kind of like, well, I needed to get in shape and I didn't want to spend money and be, you know, rely on other people to do like a sport. So I just went running. And I never stopped. And then I started doing races. Like, it's all very much like, I've decided to do this and I did it, without being like, well, and I don't know if I could. And sometimes like you really need to surround yourself with that kind of mentality, because it's good. It's good. And number 2 in my top 5 is Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. Rebecca is a book that I've been intimidated by for a long time. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. Most, if not all, were positive and they were excited about it. And hearing so many people talk about it, a lot of people, like everyone explains it differently and talks about it differently. And there were some things about this book that people would highlight that I would be like, a lot of people said that there's not a lot of plot and you're mostly just like living in her head and it's kind of slow, and those are things that I don't want to hear. Those are not words that I'm looking for when picking up classics. I want there to be something. I want there to be plot. I want there to be some kind of thing that's hooking me. And this book did that. It did have that. Now, having read it, I do see why they say that, because I mean, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, like not much happens for most of the book, and we do spend a lot of time in her head, but it's so entertaining and it's so interesting, and you are, as a reader, having like an active conversation with the main character the whole time, because some of the decisions she does, some of the things she does are just like, what are you doing? It's just, yeah, it's very entertaining. I loved it. I loved the feeling of dread and of the kind of like, again, like, what are you doing? What is happening? Like all of this, you could like, why? So it's like frustrating, but not in an annoying kind of way when you're just like, I can't read this anymore. No, you want to keep reading. It's written beautifully, but not in a kind of like flowery, beautiful way where you kind of forget what book you're even reading. It's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's like all about the writing. This is very much about the characters, and it's great. I loved it so much. If you don't know what Rebecca is about, we follow an unnamed main character who doesn't really have much in life, doesn't have much to look forward to in life, but in a trip to south of France, she meets this handsome and rich widower, and he ends up asking her to marry him, and she does, and she moves into his big, is it manor? Big house called Manderley in England, and she becomes the lady of the house, and Rebecca is the name of his former wife, and her ghost, her presence sort of like looms over our main character the whole book. What else did I want to say? Oh, when the movie came out, I've decided to read the book first, then watch the movie, but, and this is how much I loved the book, when I finished the book, I did not want to watch the movie. I was like, it was so vivid and present and like bright in my head, like I could see it, I could feel like the feeling of the book, the feeling of these characters, like the emotions, like it was so, as I said, so vivid and so real, and I did not want to watch a different person's vision of it and for it to tarnish my version of Rebecca, which sounds so cheesy, but to me, I think that reaction of my sister asking, so like, are we gonna watch Rebecca now finally, since you've read the book? And I was like, no. And that was the minute when it like solidified in my head that, oh, I really love this book. Like, I don't want to let it go. I don't want to see a different version of, you know, my version of Rebecca. And yeah, I just so glad I finally read this. And the top book, the number one in my top 5 of 2023, is one I never expected. This was an audiobook that I picked up at random. I had no plans of reading it before. I don't think I've ever actually heard of it before until I found the audiobook and I like looked at the cover and I was like, yeah, sure, like sounds interesting. The things this book did to me. That book is Between Us: How Cultures Create Emotions. Let me tell you something. I am still thinking about this book daily. I've had so many conversations with everyone I know about this book, about the things that this book talks about. It's just, and the way that I was reading it, I was listening to it on audiobook. It wasn't like in the beginning, it was very like a passive thing that I would listen to sometimes when I'm like in the subway or I'm walking to the gym. There would be like days that I would go without listening to it at all, and then listening to a little piece of, like, it was just very gradual the way I read it. And I was very skeptical in the beginning. So what the author tells you in the very beginning is that we usually think of emotions like laughter and, you know, grief and shame and joy and all of those things as being the same in all bodies across the world. The reasons why we might experience them probably differ in different cultures, but we all laugh the same way, we all cry the same way, we all feel sad the same way, because we think of it as like a physical reaction of our bodies that is like ingrained in our bodies. And she was like, by the end of this book, I will have convinced you that that is not true. In the beginning, I was like, okay, like, try, because I thought about it. I talked to my friends about it. I was like, well, I'm reading this book and she's like saying these things, and I read, I think, like 1 or 2 chapters by that point, and we had like a conversation with my friends. I was like, I don't really think she has convinced me yet, because I don't know. There were like some things she says are interesting, but by the end of this book, I was sold. I was like, yes, it's so interesting. I can't even, like, I had like hour-long conversations with my friends about this book, about everything that she mentioned this book. I've tortured my family by telling different anecdotes from this book, from different cultures, like, oh, did you know that like in Japan, when you're young, blah 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 blah, do you know that in I don't know, in Argentina, that is something that, like, there's so many things that we don't know, we don't think about how cultures react. And I really enjoyed our main character, our author. It's from the Netherlands, but then she, I think when she was around 30, she moved to the US, and she talked about how this is like seemingly a similar cultural space because it's all like the Western world, but still, like, she had a lot of cultural adjustments to do when she moved to the US, because there was so like little things that color everyday activities and how people respond to certain things and how they expect you to respond to certain things. Those things differ even between Netherlands and the USA, and how she had like conflicts with people because the way she reacted to things was not how it was expected in the US versus the Netherlands. And that's just like a tiny bit of a difference, because again, this is all like the Western world, and it goes very deep. It goes, it talks about different emotions, talks about how historically we think about emotions, how it was researched, and all the like, I'm getting like so fired up, like all of the errors and problems with that research, why we came to certain conclusions. And also it looks at different people who have moved from, you know, one cultural space to a different one, and their experience, and how it's so important to think about these cultural differences when talking to different people. And in the end, she also talks about immigration and what that does to a well, the person who is doing the immigrating, and also to the society that welcomes immigrants, and how long it takes to assimilate to a culture, and can it be done at all? Like, it's so interesting. And I mean, I can't even talk to you. I am so excited about this book. And this is the perfect top book of 2023 because of just how much impact it had on my life this year. Like, it really, as I said, I would listen to it a little bit every other day, maybe even like once a week at a certain point. And then the more like I thought about it, and it was just incredible. And for honorary mentions, I'll just mention the books that I want to mention. It's Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I did not expect this book to be what it was. I really enjoyed it. It was very long, but it was very good. I really loved it. For thrillers, probably the best thriller I read this year was For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. So many twists, and the only reason this was not a 5-star is because the ending, I think, was a little too fast, and I want that to be a little too fast and maybe a little too easy. I also read the trilogy of Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Really enjoyed it, read it all in one breath, and yeah, it was great. It was just not, you know, that top feeling of like, oh my god, I love this so much, but I really enjoyed this whole trilogy. And last but not least is The Husband Material by Alexis Hall, which is the sequel to Boyfriend Material. This book was hilarious. I laughed out so much while listening to this book. I listened to the audiobook. It was so funny. I think I liked this more than the first book. I didn't love the ending again. The decision they make in the end, I don't know why I didn't like it. I didn't like it, but the whole book was like so fun, so much fun. So these were my top 5 books of 2023 and some honorable mentions. Let me know if you read any of them, or maybe you agree or disagree with my opinions of them. And I will see you in my next video. We're gonna talk about my challenges of 2023. I'm gonna set new challenges for 2024. It's gonna be a good time. So I will see you in my next video. Bye.